All right, so this week's lesson is all about enhancements to your blues rhythm playing. And this is one of those things that took me years. I've been playing guitar for many years, playing the blues for a lot of years, and I knew quite a bit about lead playing, but I didn't know anything about rhythm playing. And so if it was ever me and another guitar player, I would always just sort of, and I was playing rhythm, I would kind of default to the old Chuck Berry kind of thing, right? And I knew how to do that, but I would watch other guitar players and they'd be doing these interesting chord, they'd play like slide into like a 9 chord, add diminished chords and all this stuff. And I didn't know how they were doing it. And then I saw somebody go, and add all this kind of real pretty sounding stuff. It's like, what is that? And it fit perfectly into a 12-bar structure. So it's just another variation on that. So I'm going to show you how to do all of that and show you how to add some different chords to your rhythm playing to make it sound a lot more interesting. And this is kind of basic stuff in terms of complexity. Once you understand how it relates to the things you already know, you'll be able to do this when you're improvising. So in this video, I'm going to go through all the lesson material. I do have a little composition that takes all of these ideas and pulls them together. And I'll play that at the end of this video. You can check that out. If you want the tablature for it, you can get the PDF file and also the on-screen tab viewer. It's just an easy way to review everything that we're going to talk through. And it's interactive. So you can loop sections, you can highlight sections, slow down the playback and all of that. So you can get that and the tab PDF file by going to activemelody.com and doing a search for ML125. That's the lesson number for this lesson. Okay, so let's talk through, well, first of all, let's talk through a 12-bar blues. Sort of the default blues rhythm structure is 12 bars. And when I say 12 bars, I'll count it out here in just a second, but there's kind of two flavors of that. There's the quick change version, and then there's the non-quick change. Quick change is like this. 1, 2. Notice I quickly change to the 4 chord right in the second bar. 1, 2. Then we'll go 3. I'll go back to my 1 chord. 4, 5. Now I'm on the 5th bar and I'm back in the 4 chord. I switch back to the 4 chord. So did you hear that little quick change? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we come to the 5 chord. 9, 10, and then we're back to 11 and 12. There's the turnaround. We repeat the whole thing. That's where the 12 bars comes from when we talk about 12-bar blues. I know a lot of you know that. Some of you probably didn't. So that's 12-bar blues with a quick change. Without the quick change would be like the song, well, I mentioned Chuck Berry in the intro, Johnny Be Good. It does not have a quick change in the verse. It just goes from the 1 chord, hangs out on the 1 chord, then it goes to the 4 chord. So there is no quick change in that. And that is common in a lot of blues songs. So some have the quick change, some don't. But a lot of them sort of have that 12-bar structure. Some blues songs have 8 bars. I understand that the number of bars can change. But it's generally that structure if we're talking sort of generic 101 blues. We can take that same 12 bars though, and we can do a lot of cool stuff to enhance that. And that's what I want to talk about. So first of all, when I'm doing this, I'm playing this in the key of A. And when I'm playing this sort of Chuck Berry thing, don't worry, you don't have to do this. I'm just showing you where I'm at. This is coming out of this A chord using the E shape. So you can see the bottom 2 strings of this. That's where that's coming from. It's an A power chord. And so that's where that's coming from. It's just out of that E shape. I'm just mentioning that so in the future, if you're ever playing, one of these and you want the Chuck Berry rhythm shuffle, you know how to get to it, right out of your E shape. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start off and we're going to take this A chord using the E shape, but we're just going to play the top 4 strings. So I'm going to bar the first 2 strings with my index finger, 6th fret 3rd string, and then 7th fret 4th string. It looks like that. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and bar the first 3 strings on that 5th fret because I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a little hammer on it. This is my first little idea. It's a small idea, but this adds a lot. It kind of blueses up that chord. And all I'm doing is I'm going from the flat 3 to the major 3 out of that chord shape. another idea, since I've got my pinky free, and this is another reason I'm a fan of not playing the full bar chord, because you can free up a finger. I've got my pinky free to hit that 7th fret 2nd string, which would give me an A6 chord, but that's a nice little embellishment. Now watch this. I can slide it up 1 and get the flat 7. Now I've got an A7. So my pinky is able to give me the 6 and the flat 7. And then I can do the hammer on. So just with that idea, out of this E shape, you've got some stuff you can do that makes your chord sound better. And it sounds cooler than just doing this, at least depends on the context, but for a slow blues, you can do a lot with that. Okay, so that's that. Let's do the quick change to the 4 chord. And instead of me playing, just a D chord here using the A shape, I'm going to come down here and play this, which is a D9 chord. And you've got to know this chord voicing. This is a blues must know. This is not optional. You've got to get this one because it's so common. So let's look, when I say that's a D9, look at where my middle finger is when I'm making that chord. That is a D note. Here on the 5th fret, 6th string, we have our A note. And on the 5th fret, 5th string, we have our D note. So the D note is just above the A note. So that makes it easy for me to sort of visualize the 1 and the 4. You just need to know how to make this chord voicing. Now when I'm playing this, I'm playing it like these 3 fingers are making the same shape as your D7 chord down here in 1st position, like one of the first chords you learn. So I play that, but then I've got my pinky to bar strings 1 and 2 on the 5th fret. And when you play it all together, it sounds like that. Now you can kind of split this into two chords, really. You can look at the bottom part, and sometimes that's all I play. And sometimes you'll hear blues players just doing that. Just playing that, and that would be like a D7. And sometimes I play just the top 3, like this, with 1 finger. And so that would be just barring strings 1, 2, and 3 on the 5th fret. And look at that, that's inside of this D9 chord. There it is, right? And so this is kind of an interesting little sidebar here, but track with me here. So this only works as a D9 sound when you're playing it in reference. It has to be in context. That's the word I was looking for. It has to be in context. So if I started with a 1 chord with an A, and then I played this, you're gonna kind of get the idea. That's like the 4 chord. But what's interesting about this is that is an A minor triad. And remember, A is our 1 chord. So in actual fact, this is kind of the interesting part. You have a 1 as your A major. You can play an A minor for your 4 chord. And so that will work as a 4 chord, only in context, only in a blues. So if you had a jam track and there's a 4 chord happening there and a D chord, I could play my A minor, and I could use that with my lead playing as well. I could play the A minor arpeggio, and that would work great over the 4 chord. So that's just a little sidebar to think about, and it comes out of this D9 shape. And so to get to that D9, let's do a half step up and slide into it. So let's back it up from the beginning of this and just kind of build into this song. So we'll start with that A chord like this. And then watch this. We did a quick change into our 4 chord, our D9, and then we'll go back into our 1 chord. Okay? So that's what we have so far. Now the song is about to go to the 4 chord, right? So we go 1 chord, quick change to the 4, back to the 1. We stay on the 1, 1, 3, 4, and then we go to the 4 chord, right? That's where we're going. But that's a long time to hang out on that A, right? Even with the embellishments. I mean, I guess you could do that and fill the space, but why not add a 2-5-1 to your 4 chord? And this is what I mean by that. So here's a 1, quick change to the 4. Here's the 1. Now watch this. Doesn't that sound cool? So we added 2 extra chords of tension, more tension, and then release the tension. really cool sound. Now this is the part that really confused me when I first learned this. When I say 2-5-1, it's the 2-5-1 of D, not of the key of the song. So it's not like the 2 of the key of the song, which would be a B minor. It's not that, it's of D. So you have to think, what is the 2 chord of D? So you could take your D major scale. So 1, 2. So your 2 would be an E minor. What would be your 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Your 5 would be an A. Interesting, right? So that's the key of this whole song here. So to get to our 4 chord, we can play an E minor as the 2. We can play an A7, or an A7 because it's dominant as your 5 chord, and then that resolves to the 1. So listen to that. Kind of a nice little change to get you to the 4 chord. But one thing I like to do as a substitute for that 5 chord, instead of me playing the A like this, I play a diminished 7 chord, which is my A sharp diminished 7. So all I'm doing is I'm taking my A chord and I'm sharping it. So there's my A note. I go up 1 note, I play that note with my pinky, and then play this diminished 7 chord. And that's just a really great tension chord, a great sounding tension chord to release to that D9 chord. Isn't that cool? You can hear the tension and release. So we have our 2, and I'm calling this the 5. It's really a substitute for your A7 chord. But that's what it is. It's A sharp diminished 7. So 2, 5, 1. Okay, let's take it from the beginning and just take what we've got so far. So we have, remember the slide into the 4 chord, quick change, back to our 1. Here's our 2, 5. We go back to our 4 chord. Now watch this. That's how I get back to the 1. Instead of me just staying on the 4, 3, 4, back to 1. That's what you would do in a standard sort of blues shuffle. But instead of that, we can go 4 sharp diminished 7, back to the 1. Isn't that a cool sound? So there's my D9. I played a D sharp diminished 7, and that D sharp diminished 7 is that same shape. That gets me back to my A. That D sharp diminished 7 is just a chord that is a nice tension chord that resolves back to your A chord. Or think of it as your 4 sharp diminished. That's how you want to think of it. Is whatever your 4 chord is, play its sharp diminished 7, and that will be the chord that resolves back to the 1 chord. The nice thing about these diminished 7 chords are there's only 3 of them. There's only 3. So this is the same. I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3 frets. That's the same as this. This is the same as this. Same chord. The notes are in a different order, but it's the same chord. You can play it infinitely this way or that way. You're just always skipping 3 frets. And you can do that for any of these diminished chords. So that's what I mean when I say there's only 3 of them. So that's one of them, this is one of them, and then this is one of them. Once I get to here, it's repeating where I started here. So there's only 3 diminished 7 chords in music. And I can call this chord a D sharp diminished 7. I could also call it an A diminished 7. I could also call it a C diminished 7. It doesn't matter, but you can just interchange that part of it. Those are just the notes in the chord. And then the answer is it's all of those things. So when I played it here, I can slide it up 3 frets and play it up here. And then we go back to the 1 chord, which is our A. But instead of me going from here to the A, I thought it would sound better to play this 4 sharp diminished 7 chord and go to the A like this. Doesn't that sound cool? And all I'm doing is I'm taking this triad and I'm moving it up a fret, and then keeping my index finger on that 7th fret 4th string. And that's just another voicing of an A7. And so these 3 you might think of as like Red House by Hendrix, if you're playing that. So it's that same kind of 7 dominant 7 chord voicing. That's a little triad there, real commonly used. But just relate it back to where we started. Relate it everything we're looking at here, relate it back to this. Your A chord using the E shape. That's home base. And so to me, these are all just ornaments that hang off of that. That's kind of how I look at it. It makes it easy for me to organize in my mind and visually on the fretboard. There's my 4 chord, there's my 1 chord, and then I came to this voicing. So let's back up from the beginning and play all of this. We're almost done with it, actually. The best part is yet to come, though. So check this out. We have... There's the quick change to the 4 chord. Back to our 1 chord. Here's my 2-5-1. Now we're at the 4 chord. Now here it is. Sharp diminished 4, sharp diminished 7. I went up 3 frets and then move that up. Now watch this. This is where it gets really cool to me. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna do that 2-5-1 thing, just like we did to get to the 4 chord. We're gonna do the 2-5-1 to get back to the A. So now we're gonna be thinking A, what is the 2 of A? Well, that would be my B minor. What's the 5 in the key of A? That's your E7, and then there's your 1. So 2, 5, 1. But there's a tension chord that can get us to the 2, and that is you need to play its 5 chord. I know this is convoluted, but I'm just giving you what's under the hood. Once you can understand how to use this stuff, you won't have to think about it in these terms. So what you do, in this case, you're gonna play an F sharp 7, that's an F sharp minor would be your 6 chord. That's your relative minor. So A, you have an F sharp minor. That's your relative minor, your 6 chord. But you play the major version of that. So you don't play minor, you play an F sharp 7. And I'm playing it right here using that C7 shape. Think of your C chord in first position. If I were to slide it all the way up to here, put my pinky on the 9th fret, 3rd string, I've got that chord voicing. So that's gonna be my 5 chord of my B minor, which is the 2 chord. So that's what gets me to my 2-5-1. So you play that tension chord and it resolves to the B minor, and then I play the 5 chord of the song, which is E, and then to my A. So I did a little walk up. Now just relate all of this back to your E shape. So here's my A chord, and just remember, I can take where my ring finger is. I mean, however you want to categorize this in your head. You don't need to even know note names for this. Just look at where it is in reference to where you're playing here. I can walk that up 2 frets, and then I can play that C7 shape. And that's that major 6 chord. And then from here, we're gonna play a B minor chord using the E minor shape. So we have the 5 chord of B minor, and then I can walk that down, that same shape down, and play it down here, which would be my E7, and then that resolves to my A. Is that a nice sound? And when I played that B minor, I didn't use my pinky, so it's really more of a B minor 7 sound. And that allows me, if I don't use my pinky, to play little embellishments like that. And I love that sound of that. And then we can walk down to our 5 chord and then our 1 chord. Now, one thing you can do, just like we did before, instead of me just playing the 5 chord right here, remember when we did our 2-5-1 for the D? We played that diminished chord, and that led me to we can do the same thing for this A. So I can play my B minor, or B minor 7, and then I can play my B diminished 7. And that chord also resolves to my A. Now this is the most confusing thing to me about the diminished world, and that is, well, which one do you use? Because before you said your 4 diminished 7, and that, listen to the sound of that, tension, release, that works, right? So that is a correct answer. So I could even use that diminished chord if I want as well. Or I could use this one. You you can hear how that creates a different kind of tension. It's a different flavor, but both flavors work. There isn't a right answer when it comes to which diminished chord do I use. Do I use this one? You could. It's a little more brash sounding. It's kind of hard to describe, but to me, it sounds a little rougher around the edges. That sounds more like a Delta blues, maybe, versus this one. That sounds a little softer somehow, but they both resolve to that A. So there's my major 6 chord, 2 chord. Now watch this. There's that diminished 7. Isn't that pretty? And then it comes back to your 1. And then you can do all your typical blues stuff. However you want to turn it around. Once you get to it, there's all of that stuff. Now you can start to mix and match this stuff. If you don't want to use the diminished sound, you could just use the dominant 7 sound. That's another kind of tension. It sounds a little different. All of these are just flavors. And I can't tell you this is the right one. Nobody can. It's really just kind of a personal preference. And you just want to play around with that. But I find that very interesting that you could kind of go either way. I can go from this diminished 7, that B diminished 7, to my A, and that's a nice little resolve. Or I can do my 4 sharp diminished 7. That resolves there too. It's just a different flavor. And just remember, just like this one that I can move around, I can move this B diminished 7 around as well. So I could play it up here. And then I just find another A up here to resolve to, right? So that's kind of how you do it, is you find the A voicing that's nearest where you are. So when I'm here, I've got one here, or I've got an A down here. So you're just kind of playing that tension, and then something in that neighborhood, you look for the nearest A. Oh, here it is right here, nearest A chord. All right, so that's kind of my thoughts behind taking the old shuffle kind of straightforward blues and adding some flavor to it. And you could do this at any tempo, by the way. This doesn't have to just be a slow blues like this. You could do it like an up-tempo kind of thing. You know, it doesn't matter the tempo. The same chord voicings will apply. All right, well, I hope this has given you a few ideas that you can add to your blues. And remember, this isn't limited to just rhythm stuff. You could use these chords that we're talking about. You could play the arpeggios of them and use them in your lead playing. You can mix them in with your pentatonic scales and get a whole different set of sounds. So try playing around with that as well. And I may do a future lesson on that if there's any interest. So leave a comment below and let me know if you like this video, if you've got any questions about it, if you had any breakthroughs. I always appreciate reading that. And otherwise, I'll see you next week for something new.